introduction. Thank you. Thanks, Greta. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming to engage with dairy and cheese and to hear this conversation. This is David Finley from the Ethical Dairy. Wilma is just inside selling, mountains of cheese, it seems, this morning. A lot of people love cheese. But I suppose I'm going to introduce myself as well, because you're David Finley, ethical dairy cheesemaker and farmer. I'm Sam Wilkins. I run Cellarman. I make podcasts, films, do talks like this, do tastings, anything really to advocate for small-scale quality cheesemaking here in the UK. I was at a wonderful convention yesterday, the Specialist Cheesemakers Association, which is where a lot of the cheesemakers from the UK get together in a field and exchange ideas. So this is an extremely cheesy weekend for me, which is brilliant. This is a story, really, David, isn't it? I don't think we just leap straight in talking about the cheese. I think I want to go back to pre-2016, traditional dairy farming. Maybe you can give us an idea of what that looks like, because I want to have a clear context for why this is interesting and this is important. I want you to have a context of broader dairy and I suppose what you were doing and what you were engaging with at that time.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Can you hear me okay? Right, we have a 340 hectare farm in southwest Scotland, which is sort of like the Devon of Scotland. So we're looking down onto the Solway Firth, 340 hectares. The land that we farm is very stony land, it's very rugged. Probably about 2/3 of it is actually pasture. And 1/3 of it is rough grazings and scrub, and then we've got 10% is mixed broadleaf woodlands. So we're very sort of marginal farm. It's not the dairy farms in our area tend to be quite intensive. The average size now is 450 cows. Very few of them get outside nowadays. They're milked 3 times a day, and they probably last for about 2.5 years. So we felt that this was a direction that was being advocated by the industry and by policymakers, because it was seen as feeding the world and creating a food product that could be exported outside of Scotland. And so that's the sort of context, and we felt that we started moving in circles of there's a bit of competition going on. Can you hear okay? Yeah. Moving in circles with the organic people 25 years ago, where the talk was about basically what we're talking about these days, which is climate change, biodiversity loss, diffuse pollution, animal welfare, all these sort of things. And so we had our sort of environmental crisis 25 years ago. We thought, well, we're going to have to do something about this. We can't just follow the pack. And we transitioned to organic. And that was a bit of a battle for 10 years until we got our heads around it, how to farm properly, organically. And it was a revolution, because what we found was the yields recovered after the initial crash, after the fertilizers and pesticides were taken away. It was like teaching somebody with a bad leg to walk by kicking away the crutches. So it was very painful. So it took us 10 years to learn how to farm organically, ecologically, and then we were planting trees and doing a lot of additional stuff. So we called ourselves agroecological, and which is now regenerative. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, we do all this good stuff. We also we felt, why are we feeding human food to ruminants? You know, this is crazy. The cereals and soya. So we've now transitioned to 100% pasture fed as well. So it's only pasture, it's only forage that our animals eat. As I was saying, the yields recovered. Our profits improved because we weren't spending all that money on fertilizers and pesticides. All this stuff is causing so many of the problems in our environment. So we sort of say we're not spending money on that stuff. We're not spending, but we're now investing. So we're now investing in our land, our soils, in our animals, our crops, and then the people. who are working there. We're trying to give the guys who are working on the farm a meaningful job, and not a 12-hour. You know, the standard in the industry is 12-hour days, 12-day shifts, and there's the amount of stress that is in our industry in the sense of no sense of purpose anymore. And again, that was something we wanted to bring into our farming system. So could we bring all that stuff together? And it was the early days of success in the agroecology, driving out the costs, getting our yields back up, improving our profitability, and give us the confidence to do address the final elephant in the dairy room, which is
Always a problem.
cow with calf separation.
I think as well it's worth really clarifying, because we're led to believe when we look at all the packaging for dairy in general, not just cheese, but milk, is that cows live outside on grass and they spend all day under the sunshine eating pasture, and that's just what they do. And actually that's just not, it's not reflective of the vast majority of dairy farms here in the UK and certainly around the world. There are, David doing an amazing job, but there are also other dairies who are trying to push things forward. And I suppose a lot of those dairies are doing what you're talking about in terms of moving towards pasture-fed, thinking about the soil, that sort of regenerative approach. But very, very, very few are doing the next part of the puzzle, which you were just about to move on to. But I just wanted to really hammer home that point of how unusual this actually is. So, David, what was the elephant in the room?
Yeah, elephant in the room is, as you probably all know because you're here, is separating the cow from the calf at birth, more or less, which is what we did. And I would never have questioned it had it not been for the fact we'd opened the farm 25 years ago, and customers were coming and were astounded, were disappointed, were shocked even that we were taking the calves away from the mothers at birth. And as a farmer, you didn't even think about it. It was just, that was farming, dairy farming. And there was a lot of pressure then from our visitor centre manager, from my wife, from my sister, my mother, women, all, who said, why don't you try leaving the calf with the mother? It'd save you all this calf rearing. We have to carry buckets of milk to the calves. The calf can go and get its own milk. It would save a lot of time. But it wasn't that easy.
Can I ask a quick question? How many people here know that generally, very, very normally in dairy, first of all, that a cow needs to have a calf to produce milk at all? Everyone's nodding. Good. Right. Okay. You understand biology. That's a good start. Lots of people don't even understand that. How many of you are aware that actually what it happens, in some cases it's a few days, but more often than not, it's as soon as possible. The calf is actually removed from its mother. Okay, yeah, I thought it might be a knowledgeable audience. That's good. But I'm sort of here to hammer points home, I suppose. You're the storyteller, but I just think it's really important to, for context again, to understand that there is a cycle of life and death in dairy that is integral to the very production of milk in the first place. And that's something that you have to kind of get your head round to appreciate this next step. And I think calf at foot was not really happening.
Cow calf dairy. There were one or two farms when we were looking at it 15 years ago when we were planning it. There was a couple of farms, very small scale in the UK. Fiona Proven with calf at foot dairy. She came along just after we sort of started making her. So we actually went to the Netherlands and took the whole team over to see the Dutch. We were doing it in small scale. They say small scale, 30, 40 cows. Organic farmers who had to feed the calves with organic milk for the first 3 months, so they were just leaving the calves with the cows. But then they had this sudden separation at 3 months, and that created issues with them. But we thought, we could sort that because we are smart, naive, as it turned out. Yes, so the opportunity arose because our old dairy premises were unfit for purpose, and we were going to have to build new or get out of dairy. And we thought, okay, if we build new, we have to have a go at this cow with calf. It's an opportunity. Time's going on. We're not getting any younger, and the window's closing. So if we're going to do it, we're going to do it now. So we built into the new dairy the facilities to have a calf stay with its mother. And that took us 4 years to build this dairy. It was a £1.5 million dairy. It was a big dairy. And when I say build it ourselves, we literally, our neighbour came with his digger, and we built this thing with our own staff and some helpers. So that was a big project. Then 2012, with 37 cows, we started the cow with calf experiment, and it was chaos. Because we had no idea. No one really had done this at scale line before, with a number of cows all at the same time, as far as I know. And so we were just dived into the deep end, and we were just about drowned. So after 5 months, we pulled the plug on it, and I said, it doesn't work. The interesting thing is, because we're now working so much more closely with the cows and the calves, and trying to understand what they want, novel. We're quite surprised about the results. And the results of that first trial, 2012, we went to 2012-13, into a brand new shed, totally clean, no disease, no nothing. But the cows were stressed, because we thought, well, they're going to be so happy. We've got the calves, they're going to give us their milk and share the milk with us. No, they wouldn't let their milk down in the parlour. They were stressed. They got mastitis. We didn't hardly get any mastitis. Lameness, all the indicators of severely stressed cows. We were stressed. We were off our heads with stress, because you look in the milk tank in the morning, instead of it being nearly full, it was nearly empty. And that's very stressful for a dairy farmer, I can assure you, and his staff. So we tried all different things, and that just seemed to make things worse. And what we figured at the end was the cows had always come into calved down. 24 hours later, they'd come into the parlour, come out of the parlour, calf was gone. That was it. That was the routine. They knew that. Maybe didn't like it, and they certainly were vocal about that, but that was it. That was routine. Now they're coming back out, the calf was there, and they're going, okay, you bastards, we know you're going to take that calf away. When are you going to do it? So they associated the parlour with the calf being taken away. And it took months before we started to break down that distrust and build a bit of trust. But it really was, anyway, it was after, we had 5 months, and we abandoned because it just seemed to be not working at all. We said, okay, the industry was right, we were wrong. It's not working.
Because these are the, I spend a lot of time with other dairy farmers around the UK, and I interviewed Fiona Proven a few years ago now, which was a very long and kind of intense conversation. She's a remarkable human being in every sense of the word. And, I spoke to other dairy farmers after I did that interview, and they were like, well, yeah, but you're going to have issues with mastitis. The cows will hate it. Basically, the only way to do it is just to kind of get rid of your herd and start from scratch, and there's no way of making that transition. That's what I feel like the industry as a whole is afraid of, is that transition period. And so do you find yourself, I suppose, advocating for this method in the face of, we imagine dairy farmers in the face of sort of, I suppose, in inverted commas, the vegan lobby, or people who are anti-dairy, but actually I'm assuming you got quite a lot of pushback from within your own industry.
Yeah. It wasn't even what we said ourselves. It was the fact that we were used by media to attack the industry. So we were used as an example of something that could be done if the industry was only prepared to do it. And so the industry, they felt that I'm a fifth generation dairy farmer. So my father, my grandfather, they've all been part of that community. So you're part of the family. And if I had been an outsider, come in with my daft ideas, it would have been, okay, dismissed him, forget it. But I'm a family, I'm family. And that's a different thing. That's offensive. So it was very offensive and very upsetting for the people in our farming community. It was very. And there are many in the dairy industry in our area who still won't talk to me. But it'll come around, another 10 years, things will change, I hope. But that's what you do. But, that comes with the territory.
I'm assuming as well that, I'm sure there is discussions about that if it's right for the herd and right for the farm, but also questions around, is it right for the business? This idea that if you're giving X amount of your milk to the calves, how can you possibly have a small scale sustainable business? I mean, how does that even work? But, you're here today with excellent produce that you can go and buy after this chat, just in the hall there. It is a business model that works. So what is, in your opinion, what is stopping other small scale dairies from following this route?
Okay, maybe jumped a little bit, but it's all in the book. Yes, we went back, so we gave it up after 5 months and we said it doesn't work. We went back after 3 years because, I'd have been walking through the herd at night with the calves and you thought, this is good, this is right, if we could just make this work. It is right, but how do we make it work? So we went back to it after 3 years. In 2016, in October 2016, we started again. And we've been the whole herd's been cow with calf, 125 cows for now 7 years. So it's working, but it has been a trial. It has been a roller coaster because we've hit all kinds of other problems. Initially, yes, there's the stress with the cows because again they're going, what the hell's going on? We don't know. But after the first year, and of course my herdsman left because he said, I can't do this anymore. This is too stressful. I'm out of here. So he left, and it just left me and my stocksman and the student to do the herd for the next 12 months because I couldn't afford a herdsman because we were losing money hand over fist. But we hung in there. And in fact, I gave the student who we knew well and the stocksman, I said, what do you want to do? We could give up now after the first year. It wasn't working. We had all kinds of disease issues in the calves. Although we were starting to get on top of those. What do you want to do? And he said, give it another year, give it one more year. And the second year was transformational. It was so different. There was so much less stress. The cows knew what the routine was. We weren't chopping and changing. We were stuck with the same routine. The cows love routine. They love routine. They might not like what you do, but at least they know what's going to happen. And that was the beginning of. You got glimpses of it. Yeah, it's better. It's getting better every year. It got better and better. And now we've got cows coming back, replacements coming into the herd. We were born into the system. This is life. This is normal. And you'll get a cow maybe in the first year doesn't give you a lot of milk as a first year calf, a heifer, but in second year, third year, just quietly settles down. So we're not brutal about selection. We say, well, give her 2 or 3 years, see how she comes on. And some cows just never settle to it. They just will not share the milk. They've got to share the milk. That is the key. And what we've learned too is that in the olden days, you select for yield and butterfat and what have you. But now, top number one is temperament. Temperament. If we've got a calm, relaxed cow in the parlour, she will share her milk with us. And that's, everybody's getting something out of this system. Because if they don't share that milk in that first 5 months when they're suckling the calf, then you never get that milk because she's drying herself off, even though genetically she could produce a lot more milk. So it's all part of the. Now, what was the question, sir?
It was around. I mean, I like being up here; it's fun. But David's a past master at telling his own story. The question really was around how do you create a functioning business from effectively forcing yourself into a lower yield situation.
Yes, the difficult questions early on. Okay, and the answer is actually rather simple. Although it doesn't sound like it, and certainly when we were doing the budgets early on, we were going, how is this ever going to work? We can assume things, but we don't know actually what is going to happen. Now, back in the good old bad old days, before we were organic, the calves got formula milk for 8 weeks. Okay, and then that was bucket reared, and then they were on to solid food. Then we went organic, and they had to get more milk per day over 12 weeks before you weaned them. And so they were drinking 420 litres of my organic milk, and that hurt. But now these calves are drinking over 5 months between 2,000 and 2,500 litres of my organic milk. Yeah, okay. So yes, that's why the cheese is so dear. No, it's not that entirely. What we found was that the suckling, surprise, stimulates more milk production. Of course, yeah, that should be a surprise. 25% more, in fact. So on average, and we think, there are cows that are doing better and some are doing worse. We think we could go even further. 25% more milk per cow after 7 years of this. Not only that, but because the calves are drinking so much milk, they're growing more than twice as fast as they were when we were on bucket rearing. So we're getting the cattle to maturity, let's say, about 6 to 8 months sooner than they were before. So instead of 28 months or 36 months, it's 8 months earlier. That releases a lot of forage, which means we've got spare forage, we can increase the cows by about 25%. So we've got 25% more cows, 25% more milk per cow, of which the calves are drinking 40%. That takes us, the maths says that takes us to 98% of what we had before. And we can do better, because we've got cows that are doing, and the other, if we could clone those ones, that would be so good. So we've got that, but also we've 25% more cattle to sell out in the system. We're not quite there yet because we've had these glitches in the system, the bugs in the system, which we've been trying to get out, because these are specialty bugs that are only present in cow with calf systems, where you take the milk and make raw milk cheese out of it, because
you're giving yourself an easy life with that choice.
So there's so many hoops you're jumping through, and every time that you create another issue, another problem. So we're having to be anyway. No more excuses. By the end of next year, we will hunt for 125 cows, or 25% more cows. That's over the 100 that we used to have, producing at least 25% more milk per cow, and we will be into the full system. The problem we have then is convincing the industry that this is not a marketing gimmick, because that is how we are dismissed. The dismissal is, well, look at the cost of their cheese, no wonder. It's just a gimmick. But it isn't, because 6 years ago, when we started the cow with calf full on, my cost of production was 30 pence per litre more than the conventional milk. 30 pence a litre. We were hemorrhaging money. Since then, our cost of production has come down because we've got better at it. The cows have adjusted. We're selecting the better cows for replacements. The whole thing is bedding in so much better. My cost of production has come down. And of course, conventional, because we're buying fertilizers and pesticides and commodities that have been rocketing, their costs have gone up. And we're now within about 7 pence per litre. And we're coming down. So I would say within 5 years, our model could be cost of production similar to conventional. As it was back when I was organic, before the cow with calf, my cost of production was the same as my neighbour with his 2,000 cows up on the hill. The cost of production was the same because his costs are so high. His costs are huge. And we can do it again. And so that then leads to the question of, okay, what is the problem? The problem is then getting your product to the customer, because that is the issue. My neighbour with his 2,000 cows is filling tanker loads of milk every day. Tanker loads. Take 20 farmers like me, to fill one tanker. So it gets expensive. And then all the way through the chain, you've got to have separation, you've got to have identification, all our sorts. The same with organic, all the way down the line. Stuff leaving the farm at 5% premium ends up 50% premium by the time it's on the shelf. And it's the cost of getting it in small quantities.
But this is why a lot of small-scale dairy farmers end up going into cheese in the first place, is to actually add value and create a high-quality product that they can, add a margin that makes sense. I just want to kind of itemise essentially what you've just said, just to again really drive the point home, is that through, I suppose, your organic journey and into this, you've effectively driven down inputs, so that's a cost that's been reduced. You've maintained output, and actually you're looking towards growing output in effect once you've done the maths. You've got a happier herd, if you can make that judgment. And I suppose what I want to know is, have you made a happier farmer?
Unquestionably. I mean, not just me, but the guys. The guys on the farm. The reason they are on the farm. Okay, our herdsman life, but he actually came back a year later and said, "Would my jaw still be open?" By that time, I'd already replaced him. And he'd gone to an industrial farm, and he'd come from an industrial farm, and he went back to it. But in hindsight, he thought, maybe that was a mistake. So there's no question, the guys who are working on the farm are working on the farm because they enjoy what we're doing. And there's not many people enjoy dairy farming now, sad to say.
I think we've got time for some questions quickly, but thank you, David. Can I just also make it clear that if you do want to try, if you've not already, go and try the cheese, go and buy the cheese, it's excellent. And there's also a dairy story, which is wonderful, is brilliant, and just an insight into the life of and I think, I'm assuming everybody here lives in or around London. This is not something that we're exposed to very often, and I think it's really important for us and for the next generation to have a much clearer idea of where food is coming from, how it's made. It's so important to truly appreciate what you're putting in your body and the effect it has on the broader environment, etc. And it's people like David and Wilma at the Ethical Dairy who are making choices to really drive the story forwards. And there are other people out there, but I hope what hearing from David will have done is to investigate their story, but also to look further and to really look into that world of dairy more carefully, because there are lots of people out there doing interesting and different things from what David and Wilma are doing. Let's have some questions. Yes, there.
David,
Thanks.
David, inspirational story. Thank you. I'm going to squeeze in two questions. The one is, in your deepest, darkest moments, how did you keep yourself going? And what advice would you give to someone, whether it is in dairy farming or an analogous situation, what would your advice be to them to keep going?
Yeah, certainly when we packed it up the first time after the first trial, I really did think that was, in fact, almost in a way, it lifted the weight off my shoulders, because I didn't have that sense of, well, we tried our best and it didn't work, so I can lay it to rest. And then we went back to it for various reasons. The window's closing. I'm not very young anymore, and if we're going to do this, we'd give it one more shot. And there were periods where it was just very, very, very depressing, very dark. And I had a team around me who ultimately have been very positive. And there's also the fear of failure. Fear of failure, big thing. That's a big thing. We'd set ourselves up as, and you have an entire industry just waiting to knock you down. That's quite an incentive to keep going. And we've had 2 farm teams already this year come to the farm, because the farmers will contact me and say, well, I want to come and visit because we're thinking about it. And I say, well, if you're thinking about it seriously, bring the team, because unless the team are up for this, unless they believe it's going to work, it won't work. It really won't. But if they see it working, they will go back and they'll say, we're going to make this work and this is how. So that's what I say. In fact, we've got what day is this? Sunday. At the end of this week, we've got another group coming from Cirencester area somewhere. Anyway, 9, I think, coming up.
The message is spreading slowly. Any other questions at all? Yes?
Hello, David. I know you're going to say yes, but can you speak to the improved quality of the yield of the milk, of the cheese, off the back of this, of that happy animal, and so forth?
Well, I can't actually. To be fair, to be honest, I can't. I would like to think. You know, we've moved a long way from. We had a playground on the farm and shop and ice cream making, and that was fun and jolly and family fun and everything. But we've got all old and serious now, and for us, food, health, environment, all these things, all these very boring issues are very big for us. And so what we're trying to do, and the reason why we don't pasteurize is because for the cheese, it's the only one we can legally do in Scotland is sell an unpasteurized milk cheese. We have to pasteurize everything else because it's bad for people's health, they tell us. So that's beside the point. For us, the microbiological cycle, the nutrient cycle, the impact that it has on our health and our inner being, our biome. There's a book called 10% Human. I don't know if anybody's come across 10% Human. 10% of the living cells in our bodies, on average, are human. 10%. Okay, the other ones are very small, viruses and bacteria and so on, but they are in our digestive system, in our lungs, on our skin, in our hair, and they are part of us. They have evolved with us. We are what they call a holobiont, and so we're a being that carries a whole community with us, and that community is so important for our health and well-being. And I've reading another book called The Ultra-Processed People. Nick Van Heliken. Very good. Scary book. If you're not depressed about the environment and ultra-processed food, it is a nightmare. So, we're trying to start that conversation about not just about the environment, how we farm and how we can produce food, but also what that food is doing to us as people, as human beings, and to society, and trying to get that message out there as well. And yeah, as Sam says, it's coming. It is coming. And COVID, ironically, was a big part of the awakening. But it's got a long way to go as well. A lot of pushback.
I mean, I think it's important to remember that milk is an incredible whole food. It's full of fantastic fat, proteins, minerals, carbohydrates, and lactose. It's an incredibly nutritious foodstuff, and it gets even better when you turn it into cheese as well, because you're fermenting it, and you've got, particularly in raw milk cheese, you've got that wonderful bacterial load from the soil all the way through the milk, from the animal to the milk to you. So we're kind of, I don't know, I feel like a cheesemaker is an inevitable part of the chain of kind of that wider microbiome, if I'm not getting too highfalutin there.
I think you're dead on. I think that is what that's our belief system, is that we are a critical part of a healthy food system, a healthy biological system, which we are part of.
Any more questions?
Sorry, a silly question really. I'm still just trying to understand, calves stay with the mother, I don't know, indefinitely? Do you keep some of them? What happens next? I don't quite understand that.
Yeah, well, the endings are the worst part of it. Okay, the calves, all the calves, male, female, doesn't matter, stay with the mother for 5 months, on average. I mean, we have to batch them, so there's some a little bit younger, so to 6 months. if we leave them with the mother for any longer, what we also find is we have to start separating overnight. I mean, it can go into a lot of detail within the book. We start separating from about 2.5, 3 months overnight, because once a calf gets to 3 to 4 months of age, even in an 8-hour period, they can drink a lot of milk. So separating overnight means that we're getting some milk from the cow. And she'll keep as much milk as the calf will drink for the calf. And then after 5 months, we separate. I mean, again, our whole system is based around minimum stress. So at every stage of the transition, we have to do it gradually, so that everything adjusts very gradually, because stress is disease. Disease is cost, and it's bad for business. And we're running a business at the end of the day. And all we're trying to do is prove that our business can be profitable, but it also can be compassionate, but yes, there is what happens is probably 3/4 of the beef calves will go for Roseville, and they come through Abel and Cole box scheme. A lot of our cheese comes through Abel and Cole as well. Abel and Cole are good guys. We work closely with Abel and Cole because they're access to our main market, which is within the M25, believe it or not. Ironically, it's just crazy, but that's the way it is. And they're older cows. What we try to do is, with the older cows, when they come to the end of their productive lives, we give them a pension. We call it with a terminal bonus. So after they get the final year with their calf, they stay with the calf. We don't milk them. They just have a sort of a semi-retirement, and then they go into the food chain, as they say. And that's heifers will come back into the breeding herd, and any calves that go for Roseville will go into 26 months.
Roseville is, I'm sure you know, but very different from the crate veal that is sort of traditionally aborted in this country. But
Roseville is animal calves that have had a more natural life. They've been in groups and out to pasture, and they've had some quality of life, as opposed to white veal, which has been in crates, force-fed milk all their life, short, miserable lives. Nothing like that.
Any last calls for questions? Anyone? No? Okay. I just want to say a big thank you to David and Wilma, who's inside actually holding the fort. So thank you very much.
It would have been more interesting if Wilma had been here. We've very good double act. As you can imagine, husband and wife.
Well, you better get back behind the counter then, David.